Hey everyone, welcome to Livestream Stars. I'm Ross Brand from LivestreamUniverse.com, and this is the show where we feature talented broadcasters delivering high-quality content across Livestream platforms. Livestream Stars is brought to you by Livestream Universe, LivestreamUniverse.com. For all your live streaming needs, go to LivestreamUniverse.com. Check out our daily updates on our Facebook page, facebook.com/LivestreamUniverse. And Thursday night, just to let you know, we have our first live stream experts show of the year. Amir Zanozzi from Zoomf will be joining me to talk about social data. And then back on Monday night with another episode of Livestream Stars with Heather Dobson. Also, I will be a guest on the Let's Livestream Twitter chat with Rachel Moore and Jen Nelson talking about interviewing, and look forward to doing that. That's 3 p.m. Eastern Wednesday afternoon. It's both a Twitter chat and it'll be live discussion as well on Periscope and Facebook Live. So looking forward to that, back for the second time on that show. But now we want to welcome in our guest. I'm so honored to introduce Bryan Kramer, one of the leading figures in the world of digital marketing and social sharing. It's such an honor to have you on, Bryan. Thank you so much for joining. Bryan is the CEO, co-founder of PUREMATTER, which is a digital marketing agency. He's a best-selling author. He's had 2 Amazon business best-selling books. One, I think, hit number 1 in about 4 categories, and made some other top lists, USA Today Top 150. His latest book, Shareology. It's all about the science of sharing and social sharing, and I think that's going to be a big part of our discussion today. Also want to get his thoughts on live streaming and live video in 2017. And Bryan's also a podcaster. He's got the BK Show, an outstanding podcast, which you can find on his website, bryankramer.com. He is a TED Talk speaker, gave one of the real popular TED Talks all about social sharing, kind of an experiment. We'll talk to him about that and so much more. Bryan, welcome. So glad to have you on Livestream Stars tonight.
Hey, how are you doing? Thanks so much for having me on. I'm really a big fan of yours and see you online all the time. So I'm glad we get a chance to talk and have some fun tonight.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to it. And I guess before I ask you about your books, and I want to ask you about human to human before we get into social selling and shareology and all that kind of stuff, your wife has a brand new book out. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. No, she is. She just brought out a book called 21 Reasons Why Creativity is Like Sex. And it is a really, really fun read. Of course, I'm by, and what really with how to be your best creative self. And she talks through some really fun things like, how to brainstorm, the best ways to brainstorm, but also equates it to some of the more, fun, deviant ways in life that we also are unassuming or assuming. And, human act, I guess, is the best way to put it. So it's pretty cool. She's find some really fun right here. There it is.
Ah, nice. So, it's not that long ago that you were promoting a book, but I was curious what's changed since you guys were promoting your 2 books and now promoting Courtney's book. How is strategy, maybe sharing about the book? How has that changed even in the short time since your books were released?
It's different. It's always changing. I mean, in the last year, I released my book last July. So, there's a lot of different changes that have happened, but it's also different based upon the author. Different authors market their books in different ways. And, some are a little bit more social and Others are in becoming more of a thought leader. Some people want to speak more. Some people want to, it just depends upon the goal of what your book is really about. And so when you market your book, you're really marketing it differently based upon the outcome of what you want to get from your book. And so she marketed her book differently because she wanted a different outcome than I did.
Right.
Her goal isn't necessarily to get up on stage and talk as much as mine is. The Carrie Bradshaw from Sex and the City. She wants to write for Cosmopolitan and do some fun things and be not only a business writer but also a creativity judge, which she's done a lot of and loves to do and wants to do more of. So her goals and mine are a little bit different in that respect. So she's kind of a little bit of a different approach.
Right, right. Before we get to talking about social sharing, which is really a fascinating topic, let's start at the beginning with the first book you wrote, which is there is no B2B or B2C. It's human to human. And talk about why you came up. There it is, human to human, H to H. Talk about why you came up with the term human to human and why you feel it's necessary to drill that home to people who are doing business in the social economy.
Yeah, this is always a fun topic to talk about because it's something that I'm really still passionate about. And it actually is something that we were talking about for the previous 10 years before I ever wrote the book. We had it in all of our presentations and our slides, and everything was very, very much around humanizing business as the last were even started to be created before Facebook ever made it onto the scene. And so, as we start to humanize our products and our services and things like that, it got even more important when people were starting to become more social, when Facebook did come around, and when marketing automation, and now into that. And yes, darn old. So I saw his comment there. But no, humans are an interesting. It's an interesting approach today versus 10 years ago, versus 30 years ago, when you had people that were going door to door and they were selling, vacuums and they were selling, that was. Now we're starting to automate so much. We're starting to really do things that takes away from that relationship and that two-way relationship that really begs itself for more business and more things. I think I don't see it going away. In fact, I see it becoming more of a necessity in the next few years. Even like a
Hey, Brian. Brian, your video's breaking up a little bit, and I don't know whether it's on my end, on BeLive's end. I'm hearing a little bit of an echo too. Last time, I think it was an issue with BeLive, and then it just kind of corrected itself. So I apologize if anybody's missing a little bit of what we're talking about. But we're talking with Bryan Kramer from PUREMATTER and discussing his first book, Human to Human. And I guess, business is going towards more automation, more outsourcing, more working from remote locations and telecommuting and all that kind of stuff. Has that changed how we relate to people in business, or with devices like cell phones and social media and everything, we should be able to conduct business just as, if not more, with our human selves than ever before?
You would think so. But I think too that, look at just what happened over the last week. I mean, everything is out of context. What's going on? What's important? what they meant by that comment. I saw somebody post something just in the last 24 hours that was meant one way, but upset people in a whole different way. And context of where that person was coming from was completely misaligned. And so I think that that what's happening is people are misconstruing who that person really is, or what that person really stands for, or what that person was trying to really say. Disparate, it's becoming so hard to understand what we're trying to say that we're having to work harder for it. And so I think people, or humans, are starting to waver between, should I really just post anything because I'm just going to create, I don't know if I have the context to be able to give everyone exactly where I'm coming from, to the flip side where they don't care. They're going to wholeheartedly what they're saying, but again, context lacks. Context lacks so much that they're starting to become really hard. So I think we're going to have to learn how to be better context storytellers, not just storytellers, but giving context up front around where it is that we're coming from. That's going to save so much of the human.
And I think obviously a good amount of the burden is on the storyteller, right? Because if it's not being received as it's intended, then the storyteller isn't probably doing their job with context. At the same time, I'm seeing something more in the last, say, 5 years than I've ever seen before. And that is the creative misinterpretation, where how can I read the worst intention into this because I can score a political point, or I can score, I can be outraged. And then if I'm outraged, I've got a power leverage of somebody. I can even get a promotion over them because I can accuse them of doing so. So I think to some extent we live to be offended because there are there are victories that we can score. If we can't win the argument, we can't win the game on the field. We can win it, by taking a quote out of context or reading the worst intention into it. Or, I'm just thinking of, an author who I think of, who engaged in an academic discussion of, is there a time when torture could be used? And you could say it's more morally justifiable than, say, some other policy in a certain situation. And people who didn't like his views on certain things rushed out to say he's endorsing torture. No, he was engaging in an academic kind of discussion of, is the morality of torture, is it the worst thing? Or is it worse, let's say, to bomb a village because we think we have information that some wanted figure is in that village or whatever? Would it be better? He's trying to put, between two bad options, figure out the morals. And somebody listening's go, he's in favor of torturing people. He wants to torture all people who live in any village, who are from any background, whatever. And I'm seeing a lot of that creative misinterpretation, which makes it hard on the storyteller, no matter how much they try and give context. It's so easy now to take a line out of context and say, that person said that. And it's not helping people come together and sort of share more, but it's making people say, like I said in 2012 when I joined Facebook, believe it or not, I was kind of late to the game with Facebook. I joined other platforms first. I said I'm never going to do a political post, and I still haven't. And I don't think most people who follow me have any idea who I voted for, whether I voted, what I think about issues, where I sit on the political spectrum, because I know that somebody's living to misinterpret what I said creatively because they don't like where they think I'm coming from, right? And so let me read the worst into it and set somebody back. So sorry about the long rant, but I see that as being a problem with our social sharing when people go into areas that are a little bit controversial or a little bit, they open themselves up for what I call creative misinterpretation, or just basically lying about what somebody said or meant to say.
Yeah. So, well, there's a lot of different, there's a lot of different ways that people share, right? And I covered this in my second book in Shareology, and the way that we share really gives everyone a sense as to who we are. It's kind of your is about yourself. And we all study this. If for anybody out there that's a communications degree, you know that as you start to peel the onion, the onion starts to become softer and at the core, right? But at the same time, to cry, become a little bit more, a little bit deeper. This communications, you don't start out by saying I voted for so and so. That's, you would never walk up to somebody in the bar and just say that to somebody or to somebody that you just met. There's an evolution of friendship over time that starts to become a little bit more of a peeling the onion, and that is the same theory that applies today. And that's that you don't give everything all about yourself to somebody new right away. You build yourself up to that and gain that relationship or that trust. And so I think that same thing applies to context. Context is that same each other and become endeared towards each other when you share just in little snippets. That's all we have time for, each and every one of us. So again, it's over time sharing things that starts to form an opinion around your social body language, and that's where things like personal branding comes into play. Because then over time, people really start around. And so when I see people sharing things randomly or putting something out that, I voted for this or this or this, again, the context of the story wasn't shared up front. You didn't share something, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, leading up to what it is that you believe. You didn't give people a sense as to who you are. You're just giving them. That this is a new. To learn and it's a different level of context. This isn't context where you're starting to think about. I've had to have Bryan restart his browser, see if it cleans it up. So I'll restart my browser and see if it cleans things up. It sounds like people are having a little problem there. Hold on one sec. I'll be right back.
All right, thanks, Bryan. While he's refreshing, we'll just remind you we're talking with Bryan Kramer from PUREMATTER, talking about his books, a best-selling author. He's also the host of the BK Show podcast, and Bryan Kramer is back, and hopefully the technical issues are sorting themselves out. You feel free to just pick up where you left off, or...
Okay, where did you hear me leave off, just so I know?
Oh, you sound great now. You sound great.
Okay. So what I was saying is that you would never give...
Shoot, still coming in and out.
About yourself now. Still there?
Yeah, still there. Still coming in and out with your video and your audio.
Hold on. Dance for everybody for a second. I'm going to make sure that nobody else in my house is on the line. I'll be right.
And I'll not only dance, but I'll juggle and tell jokes. And thanks, Brian Fanzo, for the recommendation. Alfredo says time and rapport in social media building relationships, very, very important. And of course, with live video, one of the things you have to deal with is technological challenges, but it's part of the fun, and it's so great to have Bryan on, and hopefully we'll try it again. How's pick up again, because I think we didn't really catch anything that you said when you came back last time.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Oh, yay. Okay. So let's see if this works.
I know we can see
me a thumbs up or a thumbs down while I'm talking, and I'll know whether you're not hearing me, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so basically what I was saying is that as we start to release information to everyone that that gets to know us, there's the onion theory. The onion theory is that as you peel the layers of an onion, you start to get to know somebody deeper and deeper and deeper. And as you start to release as you start to peel the onions, you also start to become a little bit more emotional. That's the emotional center.
Right.
Emotions of an onion are very much like real life. Now, when you take social media or digital media, you take marketing automation and you start to put yourself at the outer level of an onion and you peel it even slower because you're releasing less and less context, then you're not getting to know somebody. So if you think about that just in the last week or a couple weeks, when people are releasing information, it's so hard hitting that they think or why they think that. It's just cutting to the core, straight to the core of the onion and letting us know what they think. There needs to be an evolution of context as we start to do that. Now that's what people are having a hard time with on social media, but you would never do that when you just meet somebody at the bar or you just meet someone for the very first time.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, and it works in business too, right? Because you wouldn't just go up to somebody in a bar or in a networking meeting and say, "Hey, do you want to buy this?" Just pull something out of your pocket, but yet somebody friends you or follows you on Twitter or whatever, and you follow them back, and next thing you know, 2 seconds later, you have a DM from them asking with a call to action. Wait a minute, we didn't even talk yet. I don't even know who you are. And you've got a 15 paragraph thing you want me to read and then take some action at the end of it. Wait, how about how are you?
Exactly. There's an order of communication that that we're all okay with, and it endears us more towards we get what they think about certain things because we have taken the time to get to know them. Social media has jumped that shark. We're getting into people's lives way farther than we are getting a chance to get to know each person. That's the lack of context that I'm talking about, that that you can solve, that everybody who's watching this can easily solve simply by helping to tell your story over time, so that you're starting to you release the fact that you did something that might potentially cut off that lack of context.
Right,
does that make sense?
Right. It definitely does. And I think because people cut to the core, right, before people get to know them, and because the engagement often isn't that great, although we feel like we sort of know people because they're present on social media a lot, but we don't really spend much time with a lot of our social media contacts, engaging them, talking to them, taking it offline, and so forth. We tend to identify people by a shorthand, which may be what we perceive their political view to be, maybe what we perceive their attitude to be, what they do. In other words, we narrow them down to a headline, and we don't really read the story that much anymore, right? I mean, so it makes it that much more hot or heated than when a friend of ours who we really know offline says, well, I feel this way about a controversial issue, or makes a joke. You go, that's that person doing that, right? But when it's somebody on social and all you know about them is, okay, they're this demographic and they're that demographic and they believe this and whatever, it's almost like the fire's ready to be lit, right?
Exactly. So as we start to understand context more, focus your efforts on figuring out what you want to be known as. How do you want to release information about you that lets people understand who you are first before anything else? That's why in marketing automation systems, when you look at and you study emails, fail to release, like from the very first time that you subscribe, they release a first email that says, welcome to my newsletter, here's what you can expect. And then they jump right into the newsletter and you receive that every week. But now I have no connection with that person. I don't know if what I like about them. I know that they took my interest right away, but I know more about that. But if they were to give me a series of areas that would allow me to them, little pieces at a time, I think it would be phenomenal. Now, if we did that same kind of theory, that same idea where, if you were to give 3 to 5 emails of just getting to know you, and here, go see this, and you'll get to know this about me, and go see this, and I'm going to give you this for free, but here's this, and you're really giving them an introduction into who you are. That same thing, that same applies to social media. No one exercises it because it's a status box that means how am I doing right now? But that's not really the case. It's not about how you're doing right now. It's about who you are, where you've been, what you've done, what you're doing, and where you're going. That's what it's all about.
Well, I think it's interesting what you're saying about the email list, because I'm admitting too much here. I started, an opt-in right on my website, and didn't really stay on top of it for a long time, right? And then all of a sudden, I've got like 600 subscribers. I'm like, oops, I thought I had about 17. I should have been opening those emails as they go along. So I really didn't know where to begin. And so I started out just sending something on, I had done some posts in Facebook groups about comparing different platforms for live streaming. So my first email was if you want to use, depending on kind of sharing like what people's goals are, and then which platform would fit those goals. Like if you need to have 2 people on air and you really care about repurposing, or if your main goal is the live engagement, then this would be the platform, and so forth. And so it was all kind of trying to give value right away to the list. And then at the very end, I just had a little, you can, here's a discount for Summit Live, whatever. And I didn't know how to follow that up, right? That was my first email. And you kind of triggered this when you mentioned list. Like my next email, should it just be sort of an update about what I'm doing, or should it be more helpful information, or kind of where do I go next in sort of what I share with my list? I'm trying not to go to the buy this, do that, call to action.
Yeah. You never want to sell up front. Worst thing in the world is to sell it all until you've earned the right to sell. And so, what you're really doing is you're giving them a sense as to who you are. You have the right for the first, I'd say, sales in very close, meaning 3 to 5 days, all kinds of things around you. You can say, the first day, hey, guess what? Here's all my social media platforms. Love to interact with you guys, with you. I'd really love to see you. Connect with me on Twitter, connect with me on Facebook, connect with me on LinkedIn. Here are the 3 handles. Thank you so much. The next email could be, hey, I as you signed up for a live streaming. So I wanted to put this ebook together, and it's for you. Here you go. It's going to get you all kinds of cool stuff, and go here and grab it. And then the next day you give them more. You give them more about maybe a story about you that made you really believe in live streaming and what it's going to be about. And then that last day you can say, I love the fact that you've hung on so long. Thank you so much. Over the week to 2 weeks, you're going to get more information from me. But guess what? At any time, you can reply back to me, and I will respond as a human. And you can do that. And over time, you're going to start to build rapport with people over email and social media, rather than just pushing a newsletter out. If you look at your newsletter as you look at a tweet that you're putting out just simply to get clicks, that's all you're ever going to get. But if you can get a single person that signs up, man, it's brilliant.
Right. I mean, I pretty much wrote mine just as an email, like, other than maybe one link that I had or whatever which used HTML, but otherwise it was just really an email, not, a newsletter. Like, I guess the newsletter's kind of going away with the sort of like trying to make it all glitzy and fancy, right? Just a communication, basic, down to earth. You're writing to somebody just like you would write to a friend. It seems to be a good way to go. What do you think on that versus the kind of more flashy newsletter?
I had a newsletter. I now write every single one of them. It comes out every week. And I'm migrating. I had a couple newsletters, so I'm migrating them all into one. And I think it's really important just to sit down and write a letter like you're writing it to your friend across the country. Know what's been going on with you, to tell them about what the latest is that you're thinking about. I release certain things in my email once a week to everyone about what I'm thinking about, what I'm working on, that I haven't told people before. That it really truly is an inner circle, and they know like exactly what I'm thinking about. And I actually get responses saying, "That's great. Did you check this out? Did you check?" It's into like a little mini social network. And we're starting to converse back and forth, and it's like the greatest social media I've had next to social media. So I think that it's important to write it as though it's not only coming from you, but be okay with the mistakes that you're making too, because you want it to be perfect. And I really always fear that submit button when I'm going to go to 20,000 people. But at the same time, the people that reply back trying to correct my grammar all the time, they're not the ones that I want on my email list anyway. I mean, I don't mind grammar corrections. That's not what I'm saying. But if that's what you're focused on, that's probably not, my best subscriber. What I really want is a conversation. I want people to really take something away from it. And I give like nine things out of 10, I'm giving things away. And then on the 10th time, I may ask for something. I don't, whether it's, go check this out and sign up for a course I'm doing, or come see me speak at a certain place. I may do that once every so often, but I feel like I've earned the right to do that because of everything that I'm giving. And I think that they're looking forward to it because, we get a chance to maybe meet in person, or we get a chance to if there's something of value there.
And your second book, Shareology, I just we're moving so quickly. It's already 38 minutes in. I can't believe it. Sharing so much great value. I want to ask you, and this may be something you've looked at after the book came out as well. But what do you think, from what you've studied, is the right amount to be in touch with your email list, and what's too much? Is there a certain? Does it depend for everybody, or can you get it down using data that like this is what works in terms of how often to be in touch?
Honestly, you could get away with doing it every day if you really wanted to. I just don't have the time. But I know people that do it every day. They send something out every day. Seth Godin sends something out every day, 5 days a week. He's got something that he sends out. And sometimes it's just a paragraph of what he's thinking, and sometimes it's a full-on blog. Most of the time it's just a couple paragraphs. But his paragraphs are what he writes. You can almost skim it and take something away in less than 30 seconds and be on to the rest of your day. So he has coined almost, I can't think of anyone else who did it before him, but he coined, I think, the ability to capture your attention for 30 seconds a day. And he earned his right into your inbox, and also mastered the subject line, because you always want to click on what he's saying because of what he says. Like if you look at his subject lines, they're brilliant. They really suck you in, and they make you think. So he never actually answers the question of what it is that he poses, which is kind of interesting. He actually psychologically analyzes something and gets your brain going. And I think that that's what content should do. I think we're all trying to solve the problem or solve the question and tell them how to do this. And I'm guilty of it myself, to do something in 10 easy steps or 5 ways to do this. But at the end of the day, you're not going to help somebody out of a blog post re-engineer their entire company and make millions of dollars out of just one blog post. I mean, what you really want to do is you want to spark their thinking and get them thinking in a new way. If you just accomplish that one thing, then that's success. And that's what I aim for.
And should what you email, when you email things that are helpful, whether it's something that gets somebody thinking, whether it's a tip that you discovered something and you're excited and you want to share it with your list because you think it can be helpful, should that be then, when you share that information in an email to your list, should that be exclusive to your list, or is it fine to a couple of days later go, wow, this would make a great longer blog post, I'm going to write a blog post about this, or I'm going to repurpose this in a video or whatever? Or should what you send to your list, like, that's the reward for being on my list, and that's, I know it's kind of hard to walk that line, but I kind of feel like I'm cheating my list if I take something that I would send to my list and then send it to everybody.
Yeah, I would say you got to get over that, because a lot of people consume content in different ways. What they get from me in the email is a good, honest thought, and that's what I'm. So you get that from that one email, and that's just what you wouldn't get anywhere else. If I push you to an article, or I push you to a podcast, or I push you to this interview that you and I are doing right now, this kind of goes back full circle to what we were talking about before. If I were to tweet or Facebook it, you're getting a momentary idea of what I did, and clicking over to that video, but you're no more endeared to watch that, other than being the fact that I just said, hey, you might want to go watch this.
Right.
In email is like the best form, aside from a blog or a long version of a video. It's the best version of giving context of why this is going to be a benefit to you, of why you're gonna like this, of why maybe I love doing it and you're gonna love it too because of X, Y, and Z. You're gonna hear the context in a greater format than any other form out there.
Jennifer Quinn asks, is it vital to do an email at the same time on a regular schedule?
Yeah, I do think that there's something to that. So my emails come out every Thursday. I think for everyone to kind of call and think about their next. I think Mondays it gets lost. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays are good days to do it. I just chose Thursdays because that's when I have the ability to stop and think a little bit more. So I write them on Tuesdays and then they go out on Thursdays. But I think that having a consistency is really, the testing, understanding like when to click on what. And I've noticed over time, if I just send something on a Tuesday one week and a Thursday another week and Wednesday another week, that my open rates and my click rates go down. But when they look forward to it every week and I send it on a Thursday, my click rates and my open rates are even or go up. And so kind of what I think I just saw over time, because I could see, but wasn't working as well and what was, and then I knew that I had to be consistent with this. So I do something on Thursdays. I noticed too, though, if I do it on a Wednesday or a Tuesday, nobody screams at me. They're not like, why did you do it on a Wednesday? And I can't believe it. Or if I send out 2 one week, because I really feel like there's someone go, why did you do that? You're cluttering my inbox. If anything, maybe I lose 20 people, 10, 20 people off my list. But man, I feel like it's a home run when I get people to unsubscribe, because they were wasting my time and theirs anyway. So so I kind of celebrate that. I think it's fun to actually lose subscribers. I don't think you'd ever hear that, from anyone, or at least I haven't heard it. But I really actually do celebrate unsubscribers, because I think it's to get a good quality and and match it with great data. Because if you have half of your list not opening or reading your stuff, then your analytics are completely off. So you got to take half your lists that aren't reading stuff and move them to a different list and warm them up. And then you take the other half that are doing stuff and you keep sending them the good stuff. And the other people are they're going to lose out. They're going to miss out until they're ready to come back over to the list again.
If you don't mind me asking, do you use a certain program or software or anything to help with your, managing your list and sending emails and the rest?
I charge $2,000 an hour for that kind of information. I'm just kidding. No, I do charge that, but I'll give. So
I fell for it. I was just about to pull the check out of.
See, we peeled the onion, and now I'm going in for the sun. No, I use Active Campaign. Active Campaign is I researched every email database out there, including Infusionsoft and Entreport at the top level, the automation level, and then the MailChimps and ConvertKits at the bottom, or Aweber's at the bottom, and I it was robust that I could grow into and potentially have the ability to integrate with all of my product and shopping experiences so that I could not have to switch systems, because once you're in an email system, you're kind of locked. It's not something that you can easily move over, because you have forms and all kinds of stuff that you've now set up, and automation sequences and so on and so forth. So massive amount of homework, and then ended up on what I said before, Active Campaign. Thank you.
Right.
So and I absolutely love it. I think it's perfect.
So now, if I were to sign up for your list tonight, right, I would get a certain sequence of emails that are automated for a new user, right, for a new subscriber. And then at what point, like in the middle of that, when you send a list out, send something new out, right, does that just drop in the middle, or that drops after the sort of the sequence that you've set up for a new subscriber?
So it depends. That answer is different per where you actually sign up.
Right.
If you sign up on one of my lead magnets, then it would be a sequence. If you sign up just off my website, there's no context there for me to feed you something specific around something you signed up for. You specifically just want my newsletter. So it's going to be different depending upon where you're at. But like, for instance, if you went to bryankramer.com/personal brand quiz, then you'll take a quiz, and then you'll receive a sequence over the next 5 days that will take actually your personality sharing, feed you specifically around your personal type. So you'll get one day, like if you're an altruist, is one of the 6 share types. So if you're an altruist, then you're going to get more information about being an altruist over the next 5 days, and it's going to be helpful to you as an altruist as to how you should be sharing and marketing your personal brand. And so the sequence is dependent upon the it's a logic based upon your answers. To news, it'd be a very quick, hey, thank you, here's how I'm doing, and then onboard you, and then start sending you the newsletters. But eventually you end up in the same spot.
Thanks, Jennifer Quinn, for throwing that in the chat. It's bryankramer.com/personal brand quiz. Highly recommended that you take that. I'm going to head over there and take that as soon as we're done. Bryan, you mentioned six different styles of sharing or types of sharing that categories people can fall into. What are the 6 types, and are some types good and some types not good, or are they good in certain contexts and bad in other contexts?
No, everybody's good. There isn't a bad type in this theory. Now, I'm not talking about people's personalities here. I'm talking about how they share. That the personality is quiz that I want to stay away from. But the personal brand quiz goes over the six sharing types. These 6 types were actually adopted from a New York Times best-selling, New York Times research study 3 years ago. And it was based upon the types of shares that are out there, and they interviewed hundreds of people around the country and figured out, boiled it down to these 6. So if you looked up sharing types of shares, the whole study would come up. Took that and I adopted the thinking and built an algorithm around it, and basically as you go through and you take this quiz, it identifies which one of these 6 you are. So it's the altruist, the early adopter, the connector, the careerist, the boomerang, and the selective. And so the altruist is somebody who actually likes to share from their heart. They're probably a little bit positive. They're very excited. They're the people around Facebook that you see saying, "I love you. Let's do this together. We got this." Some really cool people out there, right. Being altruists, and we gotta love them, right? And then there's early adopters, and the early adopter is someone who might buy the latest tech or try the latest type of streaming software, and then go teach it to someone. An early adopter is a teacher. They like to teach other people after they've had a chance to buy or learn something before everyone else does. A connector is someone who likes to put 2 or more people together. LinkedIn's a great spot for that. A careerist is someone who wants to rise up in their own career, but they also people to do the same. And so they tend to be thought leaders in that category. The boomerang is kind of broken down into 2. A boomerang asks a question in order to get a response. So a community manager on a social media platform might be a boomerang. They like to boomerang questions. But also a troll is a boomerang. A troll likes to give a question only to hear your response and then pounce back on you. And then a selective is the quiet observing type. They're the ones who actually email you separately, or they private message you. They don't share too often, but they're supportive and helpful. They're just behind the scenes a little bit more. So those are the 6. And as you start to identify, you can be more than one. You can certainly be 2, 3, 4, all 5 at certain times. But as you take the quiz, it basically identifies which one you're leaning toward right now. In the moment when you take this, and which one you lean toward most of the time. I've had almost 20,000 people take this, and about 6 people now argue with me that it wasn't right. So I think my odds are pretty good.
That's awesome. Rachel Miller asks, how has your H2H philosophy shaped your overall business strategy and affected who you choose as clients?
Oh, that's a good question. I love it, especially coming from Rachel, who I absolutely adore. So how has your HH philosophy shaped your overall business? You choose clients. I think part of the thing is that we got sidetracked over the last couple of years. Being honest here, I think we started to lose connection with clients, and clients at our size, when we're dealing with enterprise companies, they start to get big and deeper, and you start to lose that H2H interaction with everyone in a massive company. And so when you start to lose that connection, I think you have the ability to service an account that size. And so it has honestly, it hasn't been our best performing performance of an H2H approach. But I think we've quickly learned from that. We've gotten ourselves back into a place where we're working with our clients, and we're much more nimble and small and able to actually be connected to them. So the H2H philosophy took a sidetrack for a little bit, not because we wanted it to, but we kind of got the shiny penny. And I think we're getting back to our roots again. We're starting to see that we knew relationships matter, but we're starting to feel the benefits of relationships, and having, kind of that Jerry Maguire approach, where we're getting to focus more on individual clients more so than we ever have been in the last, well, I should say ever have, but at least in the last 5 years.
Right. with the about 5 minutes we have left, we should turn our attention to live video finally. I could talk to you about email lists and sharing and social media all day. You're obviously very good at doing interviews. I've seen you as a guest on different shows, on Jenny Q's show. You have a really good podcast. Thank you, by the way, for the shout outs, you and Mia Voss, on your recent episode. With all the talk about live video, you've chosen to stick with the podcast as your primary kind of broadcasting vehicle, right? You do the BK show.
No, I have a weekly show I've had now for almost 2.5 years called the HDH Chat. It's a live video stream. And we've got about 10 to 15 million impressions that we do weekly. We've trended now on Twitter for 2 years, every single show. And we have guests on and we interview them ranging from CMOs and executives at large companies, not down to, but individuals. Next week, we're going to have Lisa Seacat, who a bunch of people on here know. Lisa's going to be talking about her new book and how the digital landscape matters to children, and she has a new book out for children, and she has over 700 registered patents. I think she's the number one largest woman patented person, and she works at IBM, and she's just one of the greatest ladies. So she's going to be on next week. We've got all kinds of really great people that talk about their passions, and that's really what we're all about, is helping people to express their stories.
So H2H Chat is not just on Twitter, it's actually a live stream as well?
Yeah, it's a live video stream, and then the Twitter is a Twitter chat that runs alongside it. It's actually picked up from, I think, Brian Fanzo, who's on here. I think he may have been the originator of that kind of style, and we picked up on it. He moved over to Blab and got off of that, and then we stuck with it.
That's pretty crazy to do both a live stream and a Twitter chat at the same time. I guess you probably have some helping hands, right? I mean, that's a lot to concentrate on.
It's well, I've got a co-host now, which is my wife, Courtney. So she just started a week ago, and she's going to be my new co-host, and so we're on camera together. And while one person is doing the question, the other person is tending to the Twitter feed. So we kind of split it up.
When it comes to somebody, say, starting, maybe not going to do necessarily a Twitter chat, right? But they're starting off wanting to get into some broadcast content to put out there, and deciding between doing a live video show, say something like this on Facebook Live, or doing a podcast. Which would you recommend, or would you recommend doing a show and then ripping the audio and making it a podcast?
See, I love media. I am addicted to it. And if I could just do it 100% of the time and interview people, my favorite thing in the world is to interview people. And I really, oh, that's right. Sorry, Brian. It was Rachel and Brian that started that together. So yeah, that's right. And they killed it. It was such a great show. But anyway, I really love media. Which one would I try first? I don't know if I could tell you what I would do if I were someone else, because I'm just me, and I like the video, I like the audio. The audio that you have to decide is, are you able to do it consistently on the same day at the same time live, or
right.
Or can you not do that? And so in that case, maybe a podcast is better, because a podcast is a little bit more forgiving on when you record it and when you throw it up live. A video, I think, back to like the newsletter and the cadence, you really kind of want that cadence for your audience too. And if you do a video, you kind of want the cadence. So it's up to you and your schedule. Now there's skill sets around that. Like, are you okay on video? Are you okay better on audio? Like, you got to decide that for yourself. But you know, I would start there. And people too, they do the live video. I don't know if you do this, Ross, but they do the live video into a podcast. So now you have the best of both worlds in one show. But everybody consumes differently, so that helps out a lot. I just don't do that because I'm ADD, like some other people on the show, and I like having different formats, different topics, and meeting new people. You know, I like doing in-person stuff more so than online. Anytime I'm at an event or I'm at a meeting with someone, to sit down and actually do the podcast with them in person, my best podcasts I've ever done, and over the ones that are actually you can't see them face to face.
Right.
So I prefer that over everything else if I had to answer your question.
For live video and live streaming, what kind of content have you noticed that's most successful sharing? Is it the talk show, the interview? Is it the solo stream where somebody's just sharing a thought or a moment in time, or does it really just depend on what somebody's good at again and how it all fits their schedule? Or is there a way to you've quantified like what kind of live video content is able to drive business results or lead to relationships or put out content that kind of becomes part of your digital footprint and people can reference if they're considering hiring you or doing business with you or collaborating with you? Like, is there any way to quantify what works in live video yet? Is there any sort of that you've got your finger on that you say that's what people should be doing?
That's a tough one. It depends who you ask, right? I come from an agency corporate background, and what's up, John? And so I come from a background where conversion is everything. If we don't have metrics, we don't have a client. And so I believe in developing metrics for everything that we do so that I can turn it into a use case that allows us to work with somebody on doing something. So everything I do is a sandbox to figuring that out. Some things I don't quite have figured out yet on that level, but other things I do. Like, I think that that everything should have a call to action, and that call to action should be repeated 2 to 3 different times throughout whatever it is that you're doing. And you can action obviously because of bit.lys and conversion on the other end and things like that. So if you go into something without a call to action, I would say you're probably missing the boat. Not everything has to have a call to action. For instance, if you're reporting, at an event and you're just sharing with everybody what's going on at the event, or you're recording somebody's, those are live video circumstances where it's great for everybody to be a part of the room, and they can't be there, but they can at least watch it. I think, reporter on demand, if you will. I was at CES representing a 360 camera company, and to be able to report from there and give people who couldn't be there a sense as to what was happening, that was kind of fun. But what's that call to action? Well, the call to action is like the light stats, the impressions, the reach, and maybe even clicks, if you're sharing with a bit.ly. But then the call to action in every broadcast that I think you're doing from a business standpoint should be go download this thing, go do this action, go put your own video up and post it inside of my Facebook group. Like, you can see that and measure what people are doing through those kinds of activities and be able to report it back to your client or whoever.
And then you can decide which is most effective by having a call to action and then measuring if there are conversions.
Absolutely. Like, one of the best people who does this is Amy Porterfield. If you listen to any of her podcasts, every one of her podcasts has a call to action, and she says it right up front, right in the middle, and right at the end. And I go to download almost everything that she says because it's really valuable stuff. But also the way that she weaves it, A, it's free, B, it's really relevant to the actual podcast she's talking about. It's not just something that she's doing for 10 podcasts. So making it relevant to what you're talking about, making it quality, something worth actually downloading, and then gating it so that you have a chance to actually see who's consuming it. I think those 3 things are the best way to go at it.
Well, I thank you so much, Bryan, for coming on. And I'm not going to have a call to action here. I'm going to tell everybody to go to bryankramer.com/personal brand quiz and
that's right.
Subscribe to take the personal brand quiz, find out what kind of social sharer you are, and then join his list as well. And I'm definitely going to do that as well and learn more by observing how he goes about sharing with his list. And this was a great conversation. I feel like we only scratched the surface. You bring so much value. I really could have done 4 hours on different topics, but it's so great to have you on and get to know you a little better, and look forward to meeting you in person and just continuing to follow the great work that you do.
And Ross, my hat's off to you, because you have one of the warmest, kindest brands online. And this is probably, I think it's the first time you and I have talked. And obviously, you know, I get to do a lot of these things, but your brand is so nice and warm, and you're so inviting and good about sharing other people's stuff. And so if there's anything I can ever do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out, and congrats on everything that you're doing.
Well, thank you so much. That's so nice of you. Bryan Kramer, again, bryankramer.com, Pure Matter, CEO, best-selling author, Human to Human, Shareology, the BK Show podcast, H to H chat. Did I miss anything?
I think you got it. That's all I can do today.
And your wife's book?
Her book is 21 Reasons Why Creativity is Like Sex.
Come on, with a title like that, you got to check it out. Bryan Kramer, thank you so much.
Be interested, right?
Yeah.
You go like this, and you'll be.
Thank you so much, Bryan, and thank you, John, and Rachel, and Mitch, and everybody, Jennifer Quinn in the chat, who's just been great and so supportive. And have a great night, everybody. We will see you back Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for Livestream Experts with Amir Zanozzi. We'll be talking about how you work with live social data. Have a great night, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.